Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Dallas Turner is their first-round pick from 2 years ago. He is extremely athletic.
What's going on, Vikings Nation? Welcome back to the most explosive Vikings coverage on YouTube, where we don't hold back and we don't sugarcoat anything. If you're here for the real talk, the unfiltered analysis, and the takes that nobody else has the guts to say, you're in exactly the right place. Before we dive into this absolute roller coaster of emotions that was the Vikings' 31-0 demolition of the Washington Commanders, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and drop a comment telling me whether you think this win actually means anything or if it's just another classic Vikings tease. Let's get into it. The Minnesota Vikings just put on a clinic, a straight-up beatdown, a demolition derby. They took the Washington Commanders, tied them up, and sent them home with a 31-0 loss that wasn't even as close as the score suggests. Every single phase of the game worked. The offense clicked, the defense was suffocating. Special teams did their job. On paper, this looks like the Vikings team we all thought we were getting at the start of the season. But here's the thing that's eating at me, that's gnawing at my brain like a termite in a wooden house. This might be the most Vikings win of all time, and not in a good way. Let me explain what I mean by that. The Vikings, mathematically eliminated from playoff contention, facing a Commanders team that's openly tanking at this point, desperately waving the white flag and begging to be put out of their misery, finally show up and play a complete game of football. Where was this team in the games that actually mattered? Where was this execution when the season was on the line? It's like showing up to your final exam after you've already failed the class. Sure, you got an A on the test, but buddy, you're still not graduating. And here's where I'm going to lose some of you, and I can already see the comment section exploding, but I need to say this loud and clear. This game does not change my opinion on Kevin O'Connell, not even a little bit. I know. Some of you are already typing furiously, but Kelvin, they just won 31-0. The offense looked great. KOC's play calling was on point. I hear you. I see you. But here's the reality check we all need. My questions about Kevin O'Connell as a head coach don't start and end with how he handles a meaningless game against a 3-9 Commanders team that's actively trying to lose for draft position. My concerns run deeper than that. Yes, Kevin O'Connell called a good game today. The play calling was creative. He stayed committed to the run game, with Aaron Jones absolutely gashing them for 76 yards on 14 carries. He got all three tight ends involved, each catching a touchdown pass from J.J. McCarthy. The game plan was solid, the execution was there, and for once this season, everything seemed to flow smoothly. But let's pump the brakes on the victory lap for a second. This is the same coaching staff that has consistently failed to prepare this team for the biggest moments of the season. This is the same leadership that watched this team collapse in games they absolutely had to have. This is the same Kevin O'Connell who has overseen one of the most disappointing seasons in recent Vikings memory. You want to know what today felt like? It felt like a glorified preseason game. Both teams came out with vanilla game plans. There was no intensity, no urgency, no sense that anything meaningful was happening on that field. The Commanders weren't trying to win this game. They came in, went through the motions, and collected their checks. And while the Vikings took advantage of that, what exactly did we learn? What did this game tell us about this team's ability to compete when it actually matters? Absolutely nothing. But let's talk about the one genuinely positive takeaway from this game, the one thing that actually has me feeling something other than existential dread about the future of this franchise. J.J. McCarthy, the rookie quarterback, went 16 for 23 with 163 yards and 3 touchdown passes. He picked up 2 crucial first downs with his legs, showing off that mobility that made him such an attractive prospect. He didn't turn the ball over. He looked composed in the pocket. He made some genuinely impressive throws, including that beautiful out route to Jordan Addison on the left sideline that had some serious zip on it. Now, before we all lose our minds and start printing J.J. McCarthy Hall of Fame jackets, let's keep this in perspective. The stat sheet looks better than his actual performance. Don't get me wrong, he played well. He did everything that was asked of him. But this was essentially a perfect storm of circumstances for a young quarterback. Kevin O'Connell was running the ball effectively, keeping the defense honest. The receivers were getting open. The offensive line was giving him time. There was minimal pressure, minimal complications, minimal adversity to overcome. This was football on easy mode. What J.J. McCarthy proved today is that when everything around him is functioning properly, when the system is working as designed, when his supporting cast is doing their jobs, he can be a competent, even high-end starting quarterback in this league. That's important. That's meaningful, especially coming off those rough performances against the Packers and the Bears, where legitimate questions were being raised about whether he was ready for this level of competition. Today was a step in the right direction. It was a confidence builder. It was proof of concept that, yeah, this kid can play when the circumstances are right. But here's what we still don't know. Can J.J. McCarthy elevate the players around him when things aren't going smoothly? Can he put the team on his back when the run game isn't working and the defense is getting gashed? Can he make something out of nothing when the play breaks down? Those are the questions that define franchise quarterbacks, and we simply don't have enough data to answer them yet. Today was a good game for McCarthy, a solid B-plus performance if we're being generous. He didn't do anything spectacular enough to earn an A, but he also didn't make any mistakes that would drag his grade down. He was efficient, mistake-free, and productive. For a rookie in a meaningless game, that's perfectly acceptable. The no-turnover game is huge. That's the kind of thing that builds good habits, that reinforces taking care of the football and making smart decisions. I'm genuinely happy for J.J. McCarthy today. This is something he can build on, a performance he can watch on film and feel good about. But let's not pretend this was some kind of breakout moment that solved all our questions about his future. This was a step forward, not a giant leap. One thing that's been bothering me, though, and I know Justin Jefferson is feeling this too, is the lack of involvement for number 18. 2 catches for 11 yards today. Combined with last week's 2 catches for 4 yards, that's 4 receptions for 15 yards over the last 2 games. For one of the most dominant receivers in the entire NFL, that's unacceptable. I don't care if you're winning. I don't care if the game plan is working. You have to find ways to get the ball in Justin Jefferson's hands. This is not just about feeding his stats or keeping him happy. This is about maximizing your talent and giving yourself the best chance to win football games. There were multiple times today where Jefferson was lined up wide with the defensive back playing 10 yards off him, just giving him the cushion, begging for a quick hitch or a speed out. That's when you pull an old school Aaron Rodgers move. You look at your superstar receiver, you check out of whatever play was called, you hit him with a quick flick, and you let him go, make something happen in space. That's football 101 when you have a weapon like Justin Jefferson. Kevin O'Connell needs to be better about creating those opportunities, and J.J. McCarthy needs to be more assertive about taking them. Now let's talk about the defense, because this is where things get really interesting. Brian Flores is an absolute maniac, and I mean that in the best possible way. This man has transformed the Vikings defense into a legitimate force despite not having elite personnel across the board. Think about the run this defense has been on since that Chargers game. They were dominant in Detroit. They were dominant against the Ravens. They shut down the Bears. They suffocated the Packers. They held the Seahawks in check. And today they absolutely demolished the Commanders, holding them to 0 points and making Jaden Daniels look completely lost out there. Daniels finished 9 of 20 for just 78 yards and an interception. That's a performance that would make any defensive coordinator proud. Harrison Smith showed those legendary instincts on his interception, reading the quarterback's eyes and jumping the route like he was still in his prime. Eric Wilson was flying around the field, making tackles in the backfield, and reminding everyone why he's been such a valuable piece of this defense. Blake Cashman and Van Ginkel, when healthy, have been absolute monsters in the middle of that defense. Van Ginkel's interception today, where he batted the ball up in the air and came down with it, was just another example of his nose for the football and his ability to make game-changing plays. What's so frustrating about this defense is that they've been delivering performances like this all season long, and it hasn't mattered. They've been let down by the offense time and time again. They've been on the field for way too long in too many games because the offense couldn't sustain drives. They've made stop after stop after stop, only to watch the offense go 3 and out or turn the ball over. The narrative all season has been that the Vikings can't stop the run, that they're too soft up front, that losing Harrison Phillips destroyed their run defense. But I think the real story is that this defense has been exhausted, worn down by being asked to carry too much of the load, while also dealing with injuries to key players like Cashman and Van Ginkel. Brian Flores deserves so much credit for what he's done with this unit. He's scheming up pressures and coverages that confuse even veteran quarterbacks. He's getting the most out of players who weren't supposed to be stars. He's created a culture on that side of the ball where guys are playing fast, playing physical, and playing with genuine aggression. If there's one coach on this staff whose job should be absolutely secure, it's Brian Flores. The man is a genius, and if the Vikings are smart, they'll do whatever it takes to keep him in Minnesota. But here's the thing that's making me even more frustrated about this season. Games like today prove that this team has the talent to compete. When everything clicks, when the offense executes and the defense dominates and the special teams does their job, the Vikings can blow teams out. They can look like a playoff caliber team. So why haven't we seen this consistently? Why has this season been such a massive disappointment? That responsibility falls on coaching, on preparation, on leadership. And that's why I can't let Kevin O'Connell off the hook just because they beat up on a tanking team in a meaningless Week 14 game. The offense as a whole looked smooth today, I'll give them that. And the game plan was well constructed. They stayed committed to the run with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, both finding success on the ground. The play-action game was effective. All three tight ends got involved, each hauling in touchdown passes from McCarthy. The receivers were creating separation. Outside of one offensive penalty, the operation was clean and efficient. That's what good offense looks like. That's what we should have been seeing all season long. But again, context matters. The Commanders are tanking. Their game plan was vanilla. They weren't disguising coverages or bringing exotic pressures. They were playing soft conservative defense and daring the Vikings to beat them, which Minnesota did. There's nothing wrong with taking advantage of a weak opponent, but let's not pretend this performance tells us anything about how this offense would function against an elite defense with a creative coordinator who's actually trying to win the game. Aaron Jones continues to be one of the few bright spots on this offense, 14 carries for 76 yards, consistently churning out positive yardage, breaking tackles, and showing that burst that makes him so dangerous. He's been exactly what the Vikings hoped he would be when they signed him. Jordan Mason has been a solid complementary back, giving the Vikings depth at the position and providing a different style of running that keeps defenses honest. The run game today was effective, and that opened up everything else for the passing attack. The tight end position has been interesting this year, and getting all three guys involved in the scoring today was cool to see. It shows the depth at that position and the versatility of Kevin O'Connell's offense. But let's be real. This isn't something that's sustainable or necessarily desirable moving forward. You want your best players getting the most opportunities, and spreading the ball around to three different tight ends in the red zone is not the same as having one elite tight end who's a matchup nightmare every single week. Special teams did their job today, which is basically all you can ask from that phase of the game. No major mistakes, no blown coverages, no blocked kicks. In a game like this, that's perfectly fine. Special teams shouldn't be the story unless something goes horribly wrong, and today nothing went wrong. So where does this leave us? The Vikings are now sitting at what, 5-8, 6-8? It doesn't really matter at this point. The season is over. The playoff hopes are dead. What we're playing for now is evaluation. We're trying to figure out who belongs on this roster moving forward, who can be trusted in meaningful situations, and what direction this franchise needs to go in the offseason. Today's game gave us a few small answers, but raised just as many questions. J.J. McCarthy showed he can function in a clean system with everything working around him. That's good. But can he be the guy who elevates the system when things aren't perfect? We don't know yet. The defense proved once again that they can dominate when they're healthy and the game plan is right. You know, that's encouraging. But can they sustain this level of play over a full season with better health and better offensive support? We'll find out next year. The coaching staff showed they can put together a complete game plan against an inferior opponent. That's the bare minimum. But can they consistently prepare this team to compete against elite competition in high-pressure situations? The track record this season says no. This is why I say this was the most Vikings win of all time. It's a game that looks great on paper, that provides some temporary relief and optimism, but ultimately doesn't change the fundamental reality of where this team is at. This is a franchise that's in transition, trying to figure out its identity, trying to build around a rookie quarterback, and trying to decide which members of the coaching staff and front office deserve to be part of the future. One blowout win over a tanking team doesn't answer any of those critical questions. What happens next week? What happens in the final 3 games of the season? Does Kevin O'Connell's future really hang in the balance? Or has ownership already made up their mind one way or the other? Does J.J. McCarthy build on this performance and finish the year strong? Or does he regress back to the inconsistent play we saw earlier in the season? Does the defense continue this dominant stretch? Or do they run out of gas down the stretch like so many Vikings defenses have in the past? The one thing I can say with absolute certainty is that Vikings fans deserve better than this season has been. This is a fan base that shows up every single week, that supports this team through thick and thin, that endures heartbreak after heartbreak and still comes back for more. They deserved a team that competed for the playoffs, that gave them meaningful games in December, that showed them something to be excited about for the future. Instead, they got a team that's playing out the string, trying to find silver linings in meaningless victories, and hoping that the rookie quarterback can develop into something special. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade here. If you want to enjoy this win, if you want to feel good about the performance today, go ahead. You've earned the right to find joy wherever you can find it in this frustrating season. But I'm also not going to pretend that this game fundamentally changed anything about the trajectory of this franchise or the concerns about the leadership of this team. That would be dishonest, and it wouldn't be giving you the real analysis that you come to this channel for. Brian Flores is a mastermind. J.J. McCarthy took a positive step forward. The offense executed cleanly. The defense was dominant. Those are all true statements, but it's also true that this was a glorified preseason game against a team that's actively trying to lose. It's true that this season has been a massive disappointment regardless of how today went. It's true that Kevin O'Connell's job security should be based on the body of work over an entire season, not on one blowout victory when the playoffs are already out of reach. The most important thing moving forward is continued development for J.J. McCarthy. Everything else is secondary. This franchise needs to know what they have in their young quarterback, and they need to see growth, maturity, decision-making, leadership, and the ability to make plays when it matters. Today was a good start, a step in the right direction, but it's just one data point in what will be a long evaluation process. The next 3 games will tell us a lot more about who J.J. McCarthy is and what kind of quarterback he can become in this league. For Brian Flores and that defensive unit, the mission is clear: finish strong. Prove that this run of dominant performances isn't a fluke or a product of playing inferior competition. Show that this defense can be the foundation of something special moving forward. If the Vikings are going to build a contender around J.J. McCarthy, they need this defense to be elite. They need Brian Flores' scheme to continue evolving and confusing opposing offenses. They need young players to continue developing and veterans to continue mentoring and leading by example. As for Kevin O'Connell, the jury is still out. 3 more games to make his case, 3 more opportunities to show ownership and the fan base that he's the right man for this job. Today was fine. Today was competent. Today was what it needed to be. But fine and competent aren't good enough for a franchise that has Super Bowl aspirations. This team needs excellence, innovation, and the ability to win games that everyone expects them to lose. That's what great coaching looks like, and we haven't consistently seen that from Kevin O'Connell this season. The Vikings are now staring down the final stretch of a lost season. They'll play 3 more games that don't matter in the standings, but matter immensely for evaluation and development. How they finish will tell us a lot about the character of this team, the effectiveness of the coaching staff, and the potential of the young players who will be expected to contribute next year. Today was a nice reprieve from the frustration and disappointment that has defined this season, but it's just one game, one performance, one moment of competence in a year filled with underachievement. So, yeah, the Vikings won 31-0. The defense was suffocating. J.J. McCarthy looked promising, but I'm not popping champagne. I'm not declaring that everything is fixed. I'm cautiously optimistic about certain aspects of this team while remaining deeply concerned about the bigger picture. That's the only honest way to analyze what we witnessed today. All right, Vikings Nation, that's where I'm at on this one. Now it's your turn. Get down in those comments and let me know what you think. Did this game change your opinion on Kevin O'Connell, or are you still in the camp that wants to see a change at head coach? What did you think of J.J. McCarthy's performance? Is this the breakthrough we've been waiting for, or just a decent game against a terrible team? How impressed are you with Brian Flores and this defensive unit? Drop your grades for McCarthy's performance. Tell me what you want to see in these final 3 games, and let me know if you're feeling any better about the future of this franchise after today's win. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Drop a skull in the comments so I know you stuck with me through this entire deep dive. And before you go anywhere, make absolutely sure you've hit that subscribe button. We're pushing toward our next major milestone on this channel, and I cannot do it without your support. If you want daily Vikings content, live reactions, deep analysis, and the takes that nobody else is willing to give you, this is your home. Lock us in as your go-to Vikings YouTube channel. Hit that like button, turn on those notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your heads up, Vikings fans. Better days are coming. At least, I hope they are. Skol Vikings.